Because I think it's really tempting to hit the easy button. So, writing a memoir takes time. But what does that mean? A writer is someone who just puts words together to make sentences on a piece of paper.
Right.
So, if you look at that definition, everyone is a writer. You
Sure.
serve it to friends and family, and it fills you up.
Yep.
Writing a book is the same way.
Yep.
You have to do the work. You have to put it in so it can truly be yours. Hitting the easy button is easy, and you can be like, "Oh yeah, I wrote a book," but it can help you in a lot of ways. But just don't let it do the work for you,
Yeah.
and all of the work. Continue to write and to put it on paper or voice note it, voice record it,
Mhm.
however you need to. But the only way it's really going to be your story is if you write it yourself.
For Love of Memoir is a place for people who have a passion for human stories. The ones we tell, the ones we carry, and the ones we're still trying to understand. Here, we talk with writers about their life-changing experiences and what it takes to bring those stories onto the page and into the world. Whether you simply love a good story or aspire to write your own, you're in the right place. Hi, Raven.
Hi, Erin. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so glad we finally connected. I'm so excited to have this conversation. I feel like it's such a hot topic in the writing space and definitely in the memoir space.
Yes, and publishing.
I
Big
can
deal in
imagine.
publishing.
Oh, I
Yes.
can imagine. Yeah, I know we've had a couple conversations. It's just absolutely crazy how AI has just kind of come out swinging. I think it's good conversation to have because it's coming, right? Like we have to know how to work with it. So I think these are conversations that we should probably have more of, so that we are not all outsourcing our brains to a robot. So I just want to introduce you really quick, Raven Petty from Raven and Grace Publishing. Why don't you just take a moment and just kind of give us your background? Tell us what you're about.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I have been in publishing and content for about 20 years. And 2 years ago in 2024, I had the opportunity to start a publishing company, which is Raven and Grace Press. And we have since published over 20 books since 2024. We did three in July of 2026 alone. So we're very busy. Many of them are memoirs. So, this topic of memoir and AI usage is very near and dear to us because we work with authors who try to use it in their process and we have to navigate around it. And so, it's very important as a publisher and an editor that, I'm able to speak about it. And then I also coach writers who haven't quite finished their first draft. I am Coach Raven Petty if you want to find me on LinkedIn or something like that. And I help authors finish their first draft and then figure out what types of publishing are best for them.
Good, good. Thanks. So why do you think this is an important conversation for memoirists specifically?
Because I think it's really tempting to hit the easy button. So, writing a memoir takes time and a lot of grit and a lot of growth. And I think it is very easy for someone to say, I want to tell my story, but I'm not a good writer, or I don't know how to write, or I don't know where to start, and to give an AI engine prompts and essentially have them do that manual work for them.
Mm.
Um, Unfortunately, it kind of removes the heart from the story. And part of the labor of love of writing a memoir is doing it yourself, and it takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's the biggest risk that I see specifically in the memoir space. I mean, there's a million risks across the board and in all of the other arenas, but with memoir specifically, there's just something so it's almost alchemical writing a memoir and putting putting your story down on paper so that you can kind of view it through a different lens and from all of the different angles. It really is a transformative process. And
Mhm.
so I really kind of worry for the people that choose not to put in, like you said, the grit for that. So, what are you seeing in your world as people are submitting their books to you? Like, what is it that you're seeing?
I'm seeing a lot of the same stuff.
Mm.
And that's what I think a lot of authors and writers don't know is that the AI engines make the exact same changes to everyone's copy. It does not matter how well you've trained it. It doesn't matter the prompts. If you tell it to write or edit something, it is going to do some very specific things to yours and mine and theirs, and it all sounds the same. It has gotten to the point to where I can simply look at the first 20 pages and tell if AI had anything to do with the editing process because I know what to look for. And there are some telltale signs for it. So we're seeing a lot of that.
Hmm.
One of the first questions I ask as we're reviewing a manuscript is, did AI edit the copy or have anything to do with editing the copy? And I will know immediately if an author is being honest or not. And that will, that definitely helps the decision making process on whether or not we can move forward because we have to be able to trust each other in the relationship. The authors need to trust us as the publisher, and we need to be able to trust the author as the person who claims to have written the book.
Absolutely. Plus, what are the risks beyond that? What are the risks of submitting an AI co-authored piece of work as though you authored it yourself?
Well, there's nothing, nobody can really sue you for it,
Mhm.
unless you sign something that says you didn't use it and you in fact did. There was an author, it's either earlier, I think it was earlier this year, who had outsourced her manuscript to an editor who used AI, and she was months. She was getting published by one of the big five. She was months out from her book release and tour, and the publisher found out that AI was used in editing her copy and canceled her entire contract. So if you sign something that says you did not use AI, do not use AI in the process of
Well,
writing or
not
editing.
apparently not only that, but know what your professionals are doing too.
Yes.
So how can you screen, just while we're on that topic, if I were looking for an editor, how might I be able to screen professionals to make sure that that's not being done?
Well, I would certainly have them sign something.
Hmm.
And, as you're turning over your manuscript, tell them that you want them to professionally do it with their own two eyes. It's going to cost more money. And
Hmm.
I think that is where a lot of people want to, again, take a shortcut is that, having a good editor look at a manuscript and really give it the work it needs could cost $2,000. And a lot of people don't have that money to spend. So they throw it into an AI engine and tell it to proofread it or edit it. And then the work is done in seconds. And so it's very tricky. You are going to pay a human being for their time, which is very important. I
Hmm.
would make sure that the editor signs something, and I would make sure to ask the editor about their process. Do they use AI, which may be okay for certain things, but you don't want AI to edit, rewrite, things like that. You can use AI as a tool in the editing process, but it shouldn't actually do the manual work that it takes to edit something.
Where are you seeing people relying on it the most? Where do you think
Whew.
writers
All
are
the
falling back
content,
on?
all the content.
All of it.
Everyone's using it for everything now. So everyone is using it for their social media captions for their Instagram. I see it in social media. I see it on Instagram carousels all the time. Companies are using it for quick content because you can produce a lot of content very quickly.
You can.
I am seeing people write chapters for collaboration books or write whole books and say, make this sound better, or please edit
Hmm.
this to sound more professional, or and all of that is just, it's regurgitating the same type of formula. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what it does. It uses a very specific formula and certain words and phrases and ways it organizes paragraphs and starts sentences, and it does it to everybody's copy.
The
And
same.
once you, yes,
Yep.
exactly the same. And once you see the formula and see that, you can't unsee it. And so it's like, then you just realize that it's in your face all the time. And you're like, okay, everybody is using it in this way.
It's so true. Do you find yourself having do you spend a lot of time digging through manuscripts that you're not willing to take on as a publisher because you can immediately tell that it's written by AI?
Absolutely. And it
Yeah.
depends on the, it, and it depends on the level in which it was used. If I
Right.
read a chapter and I'm like, we're going to have to rewrite this whole chapter, it's
Yeah.
usually a pass, and we'll let the author know,
Yeah.
we know that, whatever engine was used for this, if you would like us to publish, you'll need to resubmit when it's more of you and
Mhm.
less robot. So, and I usually give very detailed feedback on where I'm seeing it,
Mhm.
and what I think is written by AI, and we go back to the drawing board. So, and a lot of publishers, especially the big, because we're a hybrid publisher, and because we're boutique level, we're not nearly as popular as the big five, right? Where you would require an agent or get an advance, and the big five publishers like Random House and places like that won't even consider talking to you if you submit a
Mm.
manuscript. We at least are small enough to where we can provide the feedback, but they'll just toss it in a pile and just
Sure.
that's it. So
Sure. I mean, it really doesn't take long to spot it. On my show, I really, really try to focus on the transformative part of memoir. Like that's where I think the magic is. And so when I select authors as guests, and there's no shortage of people who have written memoirs, especially at this point, I think, thank you, COVID, right? It brought
right.
in a whole bunch of new authors, and a large percentage of them are largely written by AI. And I got to the point where I had to start having people fill out screening questions to see if they're even capable of kind of getting down to the heart of what the show is about in terms of like the transformative process. And man, I'll tell you what, like I feel like I spend a whole lot of time weeding through people that quite honestly don't even really know what their manuscript says entirely. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, it's your
Absolutely.
book. You should probably be an expert on it. You should know every page like the back of
Absolutely.
your hand. It's absolutely amazing to me. But at the same time, I wouldn't be able to do the show if it weren't for AI. I wouldn't. I wouldn't be able to crank out the amount of content that I crank out on social media. And, it creates all of my form letters, all of my responses, all of so let's talk for a moment about in writing, specifically with memoir, what is an appropriate role? Like, how can you use it appropriately?
Absolutely. And I love this because it is a very exciting tool. I mean, as a professional and as an editor who creates lots of content, I do use it occasionally. I will upload a finished manuscript and ask it to give me the best 10 pull quotes for social media post, and it'll give me what it thinks are the best 10 quotes. And at this point, I've read it at least 4 or 5 times. So I have a pretty good idea of where the strengths are and what's really going to land. Other ways to use it are for more guidance. So if you write a chapter and you're not 100% on it, you can ask it, where is something not clear? Did I drone on too much about this? Is this too long? Does this get boring at any point? What is the reader learning from this chapter? Really ask it questions that you're going to get feedback on instead of just letting it edit and write the copy itself. And so, even I hear this all the time. It's like, well, I'm not a writer. Like, but what does that mean? A writer is someone who just puts words together to make sentences on a piece of paper. So
Right.
if you look at that definition, everyone is a writer. And I think there's a comparison level too that gets a little tricky because people want to compare themselves to all the other people they know and automatically say that they're not a good writer. But AI can be used to help you really shape a story and make it better,
Mhm.
and in turn help you become a more confident writer because you're asking it the right questions.
Yes, absolutely. It serves as like a base, it can serve as like a base level coach
Hmm.
in terms of if I want to practice a very specific skill. And you can tell it, look, I'm looking to practice this very specific skill. Here's what I submit. What's your feedback? What's your
Hmm.
feedback on how I've done with this skill? And I think it does a really good base level job. I mean, not as good as a good solid coach would do, right? But if you're
Of
looking to
course.
save yourself some money, you can play with it in these very specific ways.
Hmm. And I recently wrote a chapter for a book, and I finished my draft, and I put it into an engine and said, "Is this message clear?
Mm-hmm.
I want the readers to see that this led to this."
Mm-hmm.
And it said, "Yes, but here are some weaknesses, and
Yeah.
here are some things that you could talk about even further." And I was like, awesome. And so I went back into my chapter, and I took its advice and added things and shaped some things and got the message, more clear.
Mm-hmm.
um, and it was a lot faster than sending it to like a friend
Mm-hmm.
or someone else in the industry who may be busy.
Yeah.
So again, just using it almost like a virtual assistant and asking if for its opinion and it giving that guidance.
Yeah.
But it did not rewrite anything. There was no copying and pasting. It was uploading a PDF and saying, what does this need to make this message more clear?
Mm-hmm. It's so funny you say that because it takes the wildest liberties, which just cracks me up. I have a memoir group that meets once every couple of weeks, and we just workshop each other's pieces that we submit. And I had read this particular piece two or three times, but it was right before I was hopping on the call, so I just wanted to refresh myself. I was in the car, and so I plugged it in to AI and asked it to read it out loud to me. And it completely took liberties and just changed the text. And I
Oh,
had to
wow.
call it out. I called it out in the middle. I'm like, are you reading this verbatim or are you making it up? And it was like, I didn't mean to make it up. I'll start from the top verbatim. But had I not known what it
Right.
said from reading it before, I would have completely workshopped her even on the wrong material.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's amazing.
It's
You really have
it's
to be
it's a
careful with it.
machine. I mean, it
It's a
is a machine.
machine.
And it is going to make mistakes, and it does.
Uh-huh.
I, I when all this started a couple of years ago, people asked me, they're like, "Are you worried? Like, as a proofreader and an editor, are you worried about not having a job and not having a role?" And I'm like, absolutely not. I find misspelled words, just misspelled words, all the time in copy
Mhm.
being used for written by AI because it doesn't know the difference in some words.
Mhm.
And so it does make mistakes. And so it's nice to have a human pair of eyes that can say, "Hey, it missed this." I'm not telling AI that it missed this, but I'll tell the person who wrote the copy that it missed it. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, no, it makes mistakes. It gets facts wrong. And of course, now they're trying to set more limitations, right? Like there was an article that came out that said that now the owners and the companies are trying to keep people from saying, "Write this book like X author." So some people would go in and say, "Hey, write this book like Nora Roberts," or "Write this
Mhm.
book like Stephen King." And AI
Mhm.
is really trying to
Use
the
their voice.
the companies are trying to stop that from happening because it
Okay.
is, of course, copyright infringement at that point. And
Sure.
you are essentially stealing someone's tone and style and genre and things like that. So companies, I think they're a little behind the curve on it for sure, and it's going to take a lot more work to get ahead of that. But I do foresee more regulations and parameters set the more it's being
Yeah.
used. Yeah.
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope so. I think it's probably all just going to be a game of errors, right? And then having to come back and re-overconnect correct. What do you think are some of the most common misconceptions that writers have?
I think one, they don't think they're going to get caught. I think some authors think that they've trained their engine so well that no one's going to notice,
Mhm.
and that is absolutely not the truth.
Mm.
Uh, I think they think that they can bypass AI detectors because there are some that and I've had mixed experience with them. I have actually tested them with AI written copy, and it come back as clean, no AI
Mhm.
detection. And I have written something completely from myself and put it in, and it has come back as AI written. So there's that too, where there's the misconception that AI is just accurate and that the everything is just as it is, when of course that's not necessarily true either. And I think another misconception, especially I see with newly published authors, is they think that once their book is published, everything is just going to be like, bam, like everything's just going to be big and huge, and it's going to sell tons of copies, and like they're going to go on book tours, and like the world is going to
Yeah.
change. And there is a grind behind that too. So especially if you have put in years into writing your memoir, and then the time it takes to edit and publish, which depends on your route, right? You can self-publish in a few months. You can, if you get a book deal with like a top 5 publisher, it can take up to 4 years depending on their
Mhm.
schedule. So you've put years into this, and to see it sell like, 20 copies or 50 copies or something like that is,
Yep.
it's kind of it's a big lesson for a lot of new writers.
It is. Yeah, we talk about that quite a bit, how it is a common misconception. Most, especially memoirists. I think most of them are lucky to just recoup the investment, let alone the time that, you know what
Absolutely.
I mean, the time that they've invested, but just the financial investment. Most of the time they don't even make back what they put out to publish it and print it, and then all of their marketing and all of that stuff.
Not if they don't put in the time. I mean, again, it is a grind.
Yeah.
It is scheduling book tours and hosting events, and really selling the book, and it takes time, and it
Mhm.
takes years, and it takes commitment. I
Mhm.
don't know, when I coach writers, I tell them it has to be more about money, and it has to be
Mhm.
more about just getting your story out there. There has to be a healing process involved.
Right.
Where are you going to be when you start the book, and where do you want to be when you finish the book? Because you're essentially going to take the reader on the same journey.
Yeah.
And so you have to be invested at that level,
Mhm.
because the money and the time you're probably not going to recoup. And you also don't want to regret it, right? You want
Yeah.
to use your story to help others go through the same type of transformation that you went through.
Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully. I think that should be the goal in my personal opinion. And again, I think specifically with memoir, I've said before that I feel like if it's something that you plan on publishing, or even if it's something that you plan on leaving behind for your family to read, if it's something outside of your private journal, right? If somebody opens your private journal, whatever they get is what they get, and that's their problem to deal with, right? But if you intend to leave it behind for others to read, you kind of have a responsibility to do it right anyway. There's nothing like, somebody dumping all of their baggage at your feet, allowing you to be the one to sift through it, rather than doing their own healing and their own introspection before sharing it with the world. I think that that's a really good point.
Mhm.
You mentioned a little bit ago, and you've said it a couple times, so I just want to make sure and circle back around. One of the common misconceptions is that people think that it's writing
Mm,
customized for them. So
it's
like
not.
it's a big lie. It's a big fat lie, right? That it memorizes your voice and it writes everything in your voice.
And it very well may memorize your voice and your
Hmm.
tone and your style, but it is going to use that same formula that it does and
Yep.
everyone else's. And there are certain terms and phrases, there are certain ways it starts sentences, certain
Hmm.
sentence structures. There's all of these little nuances that it does
Yeah.
to everyone's copy. And
Yep.
because unless you're a professionally trained person to know it, you don't know what to tell it. And so as a normal average person, you're not going to be able to say, don't start sentences with this, or
Hmm.
don't use this sentence structure, or things like that, which could potentially train it a little bit better. But my guess is that it's still going to make the same changes to everybody's copy,
Yep.
because it has to be able to. It can
Right.
only do so much because it's a machine.
Right.
It's like your lawnmower can mow your yard, it can't make your dinner too. And so it
Right.
has to be trained in a certain way to do certain things.
Why is that, by the way? Like, I really want an AI that will do my grocery shopping and make my dinner and mow my lawn
I
while I
know,
write and
right?
paint.
Exactly.
Why,
Yes. Let's have it
why is
run
it
the
doing the creative stuff?
errands. Let's do the creative stuff, and it can do all the chores for
That's
us.
right. That's how I think it should
Our
work.
body
That's how I
needs,
think it should
yes.
work. talk a little bit more. Let's talk a little bit more about how to work with it specifically with memoir. What about um, using it for to help invoke memories or to help you with the remembering process? Have you ever
Mm.
worked with it in that way?
I have not personally. I
Mm-hmm.
do know someone who recently published a book. She had experienced something in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted to figure out what happened. So she went into her AI engine and she said, "This is what happened to me on this day. This is what I experienced, what was going on." And it did give her its idea of what it thought happened. And
Mm-hmm.
she was able to converse with it at that level and say, "Okay, this is interesting," and start to recall certain things that
Mm-hmm.
happened. Um, and then and it really helped her understand what
Mm-hmm.
happened a little bit more. There are lots of different ways to recall memories. There are therapists, there are people trained to help
Mm-hmm.
you, through trauma or, whatever, to help you recall those certain things. And um, honestly, I think it probably depends on the person
Mm-hmm.
and the level at which they may be repressing the memories, or even just simply don't remember them. I don't know that AI can unlock everything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it can ask questions, but I don't know that it could ask any different questions than an actual human being could. And again, humans are training it, so it's probably going to ask the same questions. And it's really just dependent on if you want to have a one on one conversation with a person or if you want to talk to an AI engine about what happened. Um, there's lots of books, there are lots of different writing prompts that will help unlock memories.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a book that I think came out last year, the Book of Alchemy, had a lot of interesting prompts in it that were very thought provoking, and I know can definitely unlock some memories too. So it really just depends on, again, how much work a person is willing to do, and
Right.
their commitment and their level on which they want to learn.
Yeah. What do you think writing is going to look like 5 years from now?
Oh,
Considering we're still in the testing experimental phase of AI, what do you think everything's going to look like 5 years from now?
I think social media content is going to be very boring if there's still text allowed and involved. I think social media is going to just move straight to video. It's going to be all video all the time. I think
Mm-hmm.
libraries and publishing companies we are standing on our mountains as far as taking manuscripts written by people.
Mm-hmm.
It is I don't think the big publishers and libraries and, independent booksellers are going to cave on that anytime soon. While so many people are using AI, there are still so many people who don't and
Mm-hmm.
who do want to tell their story. And those are going to be the people who are getting book deals. And you can self-publish all day long, but it
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of work to self-publish.
Yeah.
And I think companies are going to get even more particular about it. I think, there will be some gray areas and some creative usage for it where it has to be disclosed.
Mm-hmm.
And it already is. Like if you're uploading, we use Ingram
Mm-hmm.
distributor and we use Amazon. So if you're uploading a book, it asks you, was AI used in this and in what context? It asks you if it was used for text or images or both. And it is an honor system thing. But
Mm-hmm.
again, they may have in their policy that if you're caught not telling the truth, they could potentially, pull your book from their listings. And
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting. I see in 5 years a lot of self published stuff from people who aren't getting picked up by authors or, I'm sorry, publishers.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot less text on social media and a lot more push for video and probably shorter attention spans too. But I think the people who are actually telling their stories are going to move the people they want to move, and the
I
people who
agree.
aren't putting in the work are going to have, essentially have to keep producing content or think of it in a new way.
I agree. I also foresee, I mean, at the end of the day, humans, we're humans, and we connect on a human level. And I think that while there might be this big wave of material coming out that's largely driven and created by artificial intelligence now, I think that the dust will probably settle because people just aren't going to be interested. And I feel the same way I hadn't really thought about social media moving to videos, but I guess it makes sense now that I give it a little. They're kind of pushing people to
Mhm.
put out shorts,
Absolutely.
specifically shorts, right? But I think that it is going to get to the point where it's so difficult to tell what's AI and what's not AI, specifically in the picture and video space, that I really see a future where people start to put down the technology and connect more on a human level. And I really, really hope that's the case. I think that's probably more than 5 years out, but I really
I
do
think so
hope
too.
that will
Yeah.
be. In the meantime, I really worry about like all of these college graduates. They're very expensive degrees. Did you read the article about the professor that um, put in white? It was an
I
assignment.
did. Yes.
Yeah, it was a midterm assignment, and he
Yes.
put in white print within the assignment that somewhere to write. It was an essay assignment, right? Just for listeners, a college professor gave an essay assignment for midterms, and he put within the text in white print that was not visible to the human eye, but would completely be visible on a copy paste into AI. Put in a directive for somewhere within the essay for it to write a random comment about Madagascar that doesn't make
Mhm.
sense. And 32 out of his 35
Yeah.
students did it. And then they didn't even proofread it because somewhere in the middle of their essay, it says something like, Madagascar is blowing bubbles on the bottom of the ocean or something absolutely insane. So not only did they just rip it, copy and paste it, and have ChatGPT or whatever do its work, but then they didn't even read through it.
Right.
And they're
Right.
paying an enormous amount. I mean, college degrees at this point are not cheap. They're paying an
Absolutely.
enormous amount of money to attend these institutions to have a bot do its work. It just, I'm a little concerned for that. I'm a little concerned for this wave of educated people um, coming out of college. And I hear people talk all the time about like AI could end the world. It's going to start shooting off nuclear bombs or, like, I mean, whatever. I suppose that's possible. I don't really know enough on the topic to speak intelligently on that. But what I'm more concerned about is the fact that we're just allowing it to do the work that our brains should be doing.
Yes.
That's my bigger concern. I think that puts us in a much more compromising position as a society and as a species, really.
Well, and from a creativity standpoint, absolutely. I mean, if you if you have this call to write a book and people keep telling you you need to write a book, which I hear
Mhm.
all the time, just sit down and write the book.
Write the
Just
book.
just write the book.
You don't even have to sound like a good writer. There are professionals that can help you with
There
that.
are
There are
tons of
professionals that can help you
professionals.
work through the process.
Yes. And I think in the creativity process, that's part of the joy of creativity is that
Hmm.
you have created this thing,
Hmm.
not let someone do it for you,
Hmm.
and it's like if you're cooking a meal, you follow a recipe and you've created the meal and you serve it to friends and family and it fills you up.
Yep.
Writing a book is the same way. You
Yep.
have to you have to do the work, you have to put it in so it can truly be yours. Hitting the easy button is easy, and you can be like, oh yeah, I wrote a book, but is it yours? Does it
Hmm.
have your soul in there? Is your heart in there? Does it actually sound like you?
Right.
Do you want to, hold it and sleep with it at night as soon as it's printed and in copies? And that's where I think AI really does it's treacherous water, so to speak, because it
Mhm.
does remove the creativity from the process.
It does.
If we remove our creativity, what's left of us?
Hmm.
What is our purpose? What are we putting out in the world if we're not creating as
Right.
individuals?
Yeah, you are 100% correct. And that's honestly, that at the end of the day, that's my biggest concern with it. I also kind of feel like another risk too that just kind of popped into my mind that I hadn't really thought of before. When social media started becoming really popular, like the rates of depression went through the roof. Like people just aren't as happy with their lives because they're seeing these seemingly perfect lives all over social media. And I have to wonder too if AI isn't going to be similar in that people, for whatever reason, now believe that they have to be an expert when they start something. Like if
Mm,
you've never written before, you're not going to be an expert at it. It's going to take practice, just like painting or a sport or cooking or anything else that you would have to dedicate yourself to a practice with in order to improve your skills. I just wonder if there's going to be a byproduct of people feeling like they have to be professionals at stuff right out the gate.
Well, and I think that already exists for sure because there are so many people who want to be influencers and so many
Mm,
people who want to just get paid to be on video doing certain things, whether
yeah.
it's selling projects or shooting a bow and arrow or whatever. I think there's
Hmm.
already that need of you have imposter syndrome, of course, where you
Hmm.
ask the question of who am I to do this, and
Yeah.
then you have the other side of it where I can do anything because we're in a day and age where you can, in fact, do anything. You can learn a skill in no time
True.
and immediately start, creating content from it and just, see where it takes you.
Yeah.
So I definitely think we're already there.
Hmm.
I think AI can sway certain conversations and egos in certain ways, and it's
Hmm.
not going AI may not tell you the truth like your best friend will. And that's the other thing to keep in mind too is that AI is going to it wants you to keep using it.
Hmm.
So it's not going to maybe tell you the whole truth, as
Right.
far as an actual like what's going on. And so
That's
you
right.
do have to talk to friends and family and trusted people to really decide if it's a good idea or not.
Mm.
If you're thinking about investing tens of thousands of dollars in publishing a book, that may not be the best route for you.
Mhm.
And you may get differing opinions between AI and the people who are closest to you. So it's very much proceed with caution and
Yeah.
trust your instincts for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. Anything else you want to leave listeners with on this topic that we haven't covered?
Just to hang in there,
Mhm.
it's all this is an ongoing conversation. The engines change all the time, the rules change. There are certain things you can do and don't, and it can be used as a tool. It can help you in a lot of ways, but just don't let it do the work for you
Yeah.
and all of the work. Continue to write and to put it on paper or voice note it, voice record it,
Mhm.
however you need to, but the only way it's really going to be your story is if you write it yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I co-sign on that 100%. Ask yourself if it's if it's using brain power that you would be better off using yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In time. I tell writers all the time, it's like create a writing space, a physical space you can sit down and write.
Hmm.
1 hour a week in your calendar,
Yep.
just 1 hour a week, block it out, keep it
Yep.
just like you would a dentist or doctor's appointment. And for that 1 hour, just write. It doesn't matter if it's in any order or if it makes sense, just write. And then
Yep.
when that hour is up, go do everything else you need to do, right? Because we're all so busy. And then the next week, just sit down and write and
Do it
just do it
again.
until it's done. And you will thank yourself for it
Yep.
much more than you would if you just let an AI engine do it for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very true. Well, speaking of professionals, where can we find you? And what have you got going on?
Well, you can find Raven and Grace Press at ravenandgracepress.com. We have a beautiful website up, has lots of our books that have been recently published. You can find us on Instagram under the same name. And if you're looking for me, it's ravenpetty.com, and that'll take you to my website. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so I'm happy to connect with people there as well. And then, of course, both websites have email and contact information and all of that if anybody has any questions. I love talking about AI and its usage and what we can and cannot do with it. So I hope to hear from listeners.
Excellent. Thank you. I would love for, as things change and maybe as you kind of see trends in the publishing and editing and coaching world, um, topics that maybe we need to talk about, we can circle back around and
Absolutely. I'd love that. Yeah.
do some more videos and just keep the conversation going. I think it's important. I feel like people a lot of times, I mean, I know on my forums, it is a really divisive conversation. It really, really is. Like there are some people out there that just believe you just shouldn't be using it in writing at all whatsoever. And then there are people, that totally overuse it. And then there are the people in between that are using it responsibly, in my opinion. And so I think that it does have some really good benefits, and you can get you can get some really good stuff by working with it, but you have to do it well. So I feel like we should probably be having the conversation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Give people a little bit of permission to work with it, but
Yes.
make sure it's not you're not outsourcing your brain power and your creativity to it, right?
Absolutely. And even borrowing or stealing from somebody else's ideas,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people who have put in the time and the
Yeah.
decades of work to make a name for themselves, for sure.
Absolutely. You're talking about in terms of like using somebody else's voice, a different writer's
Mhm.
voice. Oh
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's terrifying. That's a
Absolutely.
whole different subject. That's terrifying to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about that
That
on the
that
next one.
that could potentially get you sued. I mean, I'm no
Yeah.
lawyer,
And it
but
should.
that could potentially get you sued.
It
Absolutely.
should get you sued. Honestly. Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll circle back around and do this again. Thanks,
Okay.
Raven.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you
Bye.
soon. Bye.
Okay.
That's it for today's episode of For Love of Memoir. Thanks for listening. If something in this conversation moved you, I'd be so grateful if you'd follow the show, leave a comment, or share it with someone you care about. Those small actions tell the algorithm that our content matters, so we can reach more memoir lovers like you.